we move on to discuss the Seattle Seahawks. They have lost to the Green Bay Packers in a game that looked that really was not that close. Packers came out with a strong 14-0 lead and never looked back from there. Finished 30-13. There was a few moments here and there in the third quarter that you thought maybe Seattle could get back into it, but yeah, the Packers, they got it done. And there's a bad loss for Seattle because the Rams, they were able to defeat the 49ers on Thursday. And the Rams did beat the Seahawks earlier this year. So the Rams are sitting now first place in the NFC West, virtue of that tiebreaker over Seattle. And Seattle also has a slight problem. Seattle has to take on Minnesota next week. Minnesota is also a 2-loss team, 11-2 team that don't look like they have much games that they're going to slip for the rest of the season. And you also have the injury of Geno Smith that he suffered in this one. But the Seahawks are optimistic after tests that he should be good to go. But, again, Minnesota is still going to be a difficult opponent. As far as the Rams, they take on Arizona. They take on the Jets, Arizona. And then there's that, game, the Seahawks take on the Rams. Don't forget about that. Let's forget about that now. The Seahawks take on the Rams week 18. It may come down to that. It may come down to that. Problem is, for the Seahawks, they want it to come down to that. They need to match what the Rams do for the rest of the year. And I think the Rams, for the rest of the year, besides that, I think the Rams probably will win their next two games going up against the Jets in Arizona. I think they will go 2-0. I do. I don't believe Seattle will go 2-0 against the Vikings and the Bears. I think they'll lose to the Vikings. Then the Rams will enter with the one game advantage in that final game with then I don't know how then it gets tricky with the tiebreakers and all that, because if the Seattle wins, then they split. Then it'll come down to division record. The division records are dicey as well. I think the Rams are. Let's pull it up actually. So the Rams are 3-1 in the division, while the Seahawks are 3-2. So yeah, unless if you assume that the Rams beat the Cardinals, they'll be 4-1. So the tiebreaker will also be 3. Essentially, Seattle can't really lose. Seattle can't lose any of these two games. If they lose to Minnesota, that severely hampers their chances to win the West. Look, even if Seattle, beats Minnesota, which is not happening, I still don't think they'll beat the Rams. I think Seattle is not going to win this division. I think Geno Smith has cost them. He cost them in that Rams game with his red zone interceptions. Cost them in this one as well. Bad red zone interception. Changed the game. And, then he ended up getting injured later on as well. And Sam Howell came in and he didn't really impress as well. Yeah, I'm if I'm a Seahawks fan, I'll be very, very nervous about my chances now to win the division. Now both of these teams are also Rams, Seahawks. Whoever doesn't win the division are also up for a potential wild card position, depending on if the Commanders can drop that game, and then if Commanders drop a game, and then if the Commanders do end up dropping a game, then it comes down to tiebreakers and all that stuff. Tiebreakers and all that stuff to get into the playoffs. Between those, I don't want to really get into that. But as far as winning the division, I think the Rams are the clear favorites because, I think they play a little bit of the easier schedule. I think they're the better team. I think they have the better quarterback. I trust if they played against each of the Week 18 game was a win or go home for both teams. I trust Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay more than I would trust Geno Smith and Mike McDonald. simply comes down to all of that. I mean, I just trust one quarterback coach partnership a lot more than the other. Even though I guess what the Seahawks has been able to do is respectable this season. You know, they've reeled off reeled off 4 straight wins since that bad loss that they suffered against the Rams to put themselves in this position to where they were top of the NFC West in a good position. But now with this loss, with the Rams win, I think the division is to lose for the Rams. And honestly, let's be real. The Rams could cause some major headaches for any top team in the NFC competing to win the Super Bowl. The Rams will give them headaches, and the Rams could beat, I'd probably choose them over some of those top teams. Seattle, I think there'll be a bye week for a majority of the teams that are going to make the playoffs. I think there will be a bye week, a rest. I just don't think they're at that level to compete in a playoffs. Don't see it. Yes, they've reeled off the wins and they beat the Jets and they beat Arizona twice. Yeah, they beat the Niners last minute, almost last seconds walk-off touchdown. But yeah, I just don't. Not with Geno Smith. They're not competing at that level, Seattle. They're an okay team, but they're not great. They're not great on either side of the ball. The Rams, they have that man in Matthew Stafford. They have this partnership with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. They're starting to run the ball a little bit better as well with Kyron Williams. He's a threat as well. He had 108 yards actually at the 49ers. He was really big down the stretch. He's had a 1,000-yard season this year. Kyron Williams. I think Rams are balanced. And then they have pedigree as well. Super Bowl winning coach, Super Bowl winning quarterback. I think the Rams are clear favorites to win the NFC West.